Hello folks. Somebody just sent me a paper from UK Medical Freedom Alliance, and they call themselves Lawyers for Liberty. So there's a couple of things wrong with that for a start if you want to be getting into law. The term UK is a corporation, it's an occupation title, and liberty is admiralty. It's an admiralty term. So straight off the get-go, I'll just advise you guys, you're coming in from the wrong angle. You want to be putting law into this, and this isn't law. And if anybody is telling you that what they're playing with here is law, then you want to question where they're coming from, because liberty is admiralty. It's not law, it's not common law, and you need to get that. And UK use that term at any time you're in the game. You're not on the side, you're not outside the game, you're not bringing common law into it. You're dealing with person always. You're not going to get anywhere trying to set out systems in person, for the simple reason everything that's been created by the bankers is on person. You need to jump off person. That's just a bit of advice on here. However, just looking through it, there are some pretty interesting points that perhaps we're not aware of. So this is an open letter from the UK Medical Freedom Alliance and Lawyers for Liberty to Boris Johnson, Nicola Sturgeon, Mark Drakeford, Eileen Foster, Matt Hancock, Michael Gove, Nadeem Zawawi, Mark Harper, Graham Brady, Elizabeth Denham. So you have a Sir in there and you have a CBE. So Graham Brady was chair of the Conservative Party. 1922 committee. Fair enough. So basically, it begins, the UK Medical Freedom Alliance is an alliance of UK medical professionals, scientists and lawyers who are campaigning for medical freedom, informed consent and bodily autonomy to be preserved and protected. Lawyers for Liberty is a team of solicitors and barristers who are monitoring the legalities of the government's COVID-19 measures. We have grave concerns over recent rhetoric from the government and private business regarding the introduction of vaccine immunity passports and set out our legal, ethical and medical objections below. It says evidence of plans to introduce COVID-19 vaccine immunity passports, despite the UK government recently ruling out introducing COVID-19 vaccine passports, which they did in The Independent, stating that they would be discriminatory, which they are. The Human Rights Act is very clear, and this is not the European Human Rights Act, that you cannot discriminate in this way. Now, I don't know whether you're keeping savvy, but the government keep harping on about removing the Human Rights Act. And what they're using in order to get that in your minds is they're making the claim that it's the immigrants that are using this. Let me just take you a step back here, okay? Who is bringing in the immigrants? And who's been doing this since the 50s? The Crown. Successive governments, because successive governments that we're speaking of are HM agents. All right, so let's just get this into perspective. The Crown is bringing in the immigrants. Okay, it's an Assyrian war plan and it works very well. So if you were being sidelined on this idea that you need to get rid of human rights because the immigrants are using it to stay here, then you're not very bright. And if you're a lawyer and a barrister, what I'd suggest you need to do is start to recognise that you haven't been taught the common law. Yet you've been taught by the British Empire, and you've been taught administration law, admiralty, maritime. That's what you've been taught. You have, it would appear in the use of the term liberty, no idea of what law is and what law isn't. Okay, so you guys, I don't care how high you think you are, you need to address that in yourselves, okay? Because this document is just full of administration protocols, not the law. It said it is now confirmed that biometrics firm iProve and cybersecurity firm Mvine have developed vaccine passports, which will be optionally provided as an app on phones of those vaccinated. On the 13th of January 2021, Mvine and iProve announced that their simple, secure and widely recognised COVID-19 immunity and vaccination passport will now move into live testing. Backed by Innovate UK, the Mvine iProv passport will be tested by directors of public health within the NHS. Okay, you've got to remember this NHS is now privatised, it's a corporation, it's got nothing to do, it's a trust. There is no trust in it. The only trust you've got is to satisfy the bankers' demand to depopulate. The companies aim to complete 2 trials by the 31st of March 2021. So they're in it now. They're actually trialling it. So whatever the government are talking, they're talking out their arse. Now, why are we second in line after Israel for this nonsense? Pretty clear. British Israel. British Israel. Not England's Israel. Scotland's Israel, although the Scottish Right completely controls Scotland, and therefore it is Scottish Israel. It's British Israel. Yeah? British is an empire. It's the title of occupation. Britain, Great Britain. Okay? British Isles is the only term to actually designate where we live. Not Great Britain, not even England in essence, but then there is a difference between the occupation titles that we do know of, like Britannia, Great Britain, UK, and England. Because England is the only nation that was actually set up under the Roman Church as opposed to the Empire. Okay, the Empire took over British Isles and called it Britannia. That ended, and the Church then came in with Alfred. Because remember, Alfred was tapped by the Pope as a child. He pulled in the Druid laws that were already existent here, the common laws as we know them, because they're way older than Alfred. He didn't invent any laws, he just pulled together the ones that were acceptable to the Pope. So England is slightly different in that sense. It's not the Empire, it was the Church. And as you can see now, this public health England, this is the real problem. This is the problem that we've got here. It says, I'll just repeat that, the companies aim to complete 2 trials by the 31st of March 2021 to give directors of public health, across the country the confidence to deploy the passport at scale to benefit their local areas. So, Public Health England has decided it owns areas in England and Scotland and Ireland. Get a grip of this stuff, people. It says recent reports suggest that the UK government is funding 8 different COVID-19 vaccine passport schemes and has already paid 450,000 of your money, your debt, in grants to these companies. One contract worth 42,000 was awarded in November 2020 to Net Company UK to develop a COVID-19 certification passport, MVP. Another government contract worth £34,000 was granted to Hub Company to develop a QR code based app. So this has been going on for a long time, and I made early videos last year telling you that this is where it's going, and I exposed one particular company from the north. So this is going on. Implications of introducing COVID-19 vaccine immunity passports. The concept of issuing vaccine passports has significant scientific, ethical, legal, social, economic and political implications. The government has denied it will make COVID-19 vaccines mandatory, as that would breach human rights laws and be disastrous for public relations. You're damn right it would. However, the introduction of an official government vaccine passport would result in an indirect mandate, allowing pressure to be applied by private companies and other authorities. Well, they're all private companies claiming to be an authority. Your council is a corporation. The executive. You see, when we're talking about councils, you must have all recognised by now that your half-wit councillor has no power in this. It's very rare you see the names. It's the MP and the council executive, from which you get the environmental imps from, So it's the council executive which is corporate. And because they've got our councillors that we elect, that you elect, in the bag, these council executives, who are basically the stakeholder committees, are running riot. So it's all corporate, private. You know, this is what fascism is. When the corporate realm merges with the civil system, you've got fascism in place. And that's what we're on. So if you're operating on the British idea, you are now, right now today, a Nazi. You are what we called National Socialists in Germany. That's what you are. It's the same thing. The British Empire created IG Farben. The British Empire created Hitler. The British Empire created Bolshevism. The British Empire built the corporation China at the back of the Iron Curtain, while you were all bedazzled by nuclear holocaust. That didn't happen, did it? So these are the things you've really got to recognise, that there's a huge difference between Britain, British Empire, and England, and Scotland, and, well, I mean, Ireland's a bit screwed, isn't it, now? It's still under the EU. And remember, the EU was formulated in London, the city, the Temple Crown, and although we didn't get into the euro, the Temple Crown created the euro and has made money from it. This is why they didn't want you to go into Brexit. The landed gentry, who were making millions sat on their arse in subsidies, in order you can't grow food. However, there's still a massive amount of common land in this nation. You need to start moving to look at how we can utilise it, because it's all there in common law. For land usage. If you are homeless, get on the common ground. They can't move you off it, because it's set in law, your rights to the common land, to use it for grazing, etc. And of course, if you've lost your property, that's an essential use of the common law, the common land. It says, however, the introduction of an official government vaccine passport would result in an indirect mandate, allowing pressures to be applied by private companies and other authorities, who will be able to demand a valid vaccine passport as a condition of service position. Well, they won't, because it's discrimination in the Human Rights Act, not the European one, this one that the UK has set up here. So they can't. You would have to sue these companies, And then militia. Militia is going to have to start to looking at any outlet that starts to use this vaccine passport has to be taken off those that own it. Do you understand what I'm saying? The buildings, everything would have to be taken off them in order we don't have major problems here and breaches of the peace everywhere. So that would be a duty incumbent on militia. So like if any supermarket started to use this thing, then you'd have to take the supermarket off them in the immediate. And then what food is in there, we can distribute ourselves. Because this is, if they're going to break the law and the courts are going to back it, then yeah, we'd have to try the courts. But also as men, we'd have to move this ourselves and just remove these businesses off those that are trying to play this game. That's militia. And that again is in law, that's within common law. Under existing laws against discrimination, the government may not be able to prevent businesses from requiring proof of vaccination and may only be able to issue a warning against it, which would have no legal standing. Well, we don't want to be in any legal standing anyway. We want to be in law, Again, these lawyers obfuscating. Now, I do understand that they haven't been taught, but you've had enough time now since the Freeman started kicking off to at least acknowledge in yourself that there's something you haven't been taught. If you haven't acknowledged that and studied it, then you're happy to play along in the game. So I'd say again to this alliance, you need to double check who these people are in the Lawyers for Liberty that are advising you in the way that you should move with this. Because a bit like the Venetians garbage, they're moving it in a particular direction and they're keeping it off law. It's all on person, it's all within the statutes, on person. You're not going to change that, people. You're not going to change the laws on person. We have to remove the laws of person having precedent over the laws of man. Parliament must update the legislation as a matter of urgency. International health regulations prohibit health measures that are discriminatory and impede international travel. UK laws should provide the same protection for its citizens. But of course, health regulations are being issued by the World Health Organization, which is the United Nations, which is the bankers. They can change that at any time they wish. Your governments have already signed into this. And as we described in the last video, Codex Alimentarius is being run by the World Health Organization. And just in that alone, you can see that they're running that not to promote health, but to destroy it. Otherwise, why would you need Codex Alimentarius? The removal of... You see, they've classed vitamins and nutrients as poison in order they can get legal authority in that subject matter. Okay. So again, UK laws. They're still talking UK laws. So this is looking to me, although we're getting some good info out of here, it looks like this UK Medical Freedom Alliance and Lawyers for Liberty are just another divertory path. So if we go through this now in this sense, you can sense where they're going to take you down a dead end, and maybe people can start to take what we need but put it in its correct format. Okay? Now, medical concerns around COVID-19 vaccine immunity passports. Effectiveness of current available COVID-19 vaccines. There is no scientific evidence that COVID-19 vaccines prevent either infection and or transmission of SARS-CoV-2. There's no evidence, no scientific evidence is what it says. As the clinical trials were not designed to assess these endpoints. Therefore, the COVID-19 vaccines have not been shown to have a wider public health benefit beyond the vaccinee. So basically what it's saying is, if you get vaccinated, it doesn't prevent anybody else getting it. So it hasn't got a herd immunity effect at all. There is currently no knowledge of the duration of any protective effect from vaccination beyond 3 months, or whether subsequent boosters doses may be required and how frequently. Well, they're already putting it out that they're suggesting you'd have to get a shot before you leave the country and then again when you come back. So they are actually doing this. In fact, they're setting themselves up to come up with vaccines for everything. Every time they come up with a new variant, oh, we need a new vaccine. Can you... You know, they're just... Why would they want to load you up with poison if they didn't want to kill you? Or debilitate you, you know? Why would they want to do that? The Bolsheviks are successful when the population are unaware of what the actual game is until it's too late. You know, they killed 60 million Russians. Russia, after Stalingrad, was basically a yellow race nation, and it still is. Okay? The white Russian Christians were demolished through the Bolshevik Revolution, and then again in the Second World War, because the Second World War wasn't about Battle of Britain and any of that. The war was between Germany and Russia, both of which were annihilated, totally annihilated. And when Stalin came into Berlin, this yellow army, the Tartars, the Mongols, okay, which is why you can understand why they're bigging up Tartary and presenting Russia as this some kind of fantastic. The only enemies the Tartars had back in the day was Moscow, which wasn't Russia into Siberia. You've got to look at Catherine the Great for that. And the Rothschilds' British Empire. They were the two enemies of the Tartars. When they entered Berlin through Stalin at the end of the Second World War, they raped to death all the remaining females. Babies, little girls, mothers, grandmas, in the churches, on the streets, in the pubs, in their houses. And they did that for about 2 weeks until there were none left. This is what they don't tell you. You know, you're so focused to Battle of Britain, 633 Squadron. Who? Baby boomers. Look, you know, there's no excuse. I was brought up with all that stuff there, and I sucked into it too as I got to that point, hence joining the Red Machine. But once I got in the Red Machine and saw that it were more about vaccinations than anything else, that was the end. Then my awakening began, you know, and I educated myself. And you haven't done that. That's on you, you know. It says there is evidence that naturally acquired immunity from COVID-19 is long-lasting, yet immunity passports are only proposed for vaccinated individuals and not for those who have had COVID-19 and have natural immunity. Now that is discriminatory. Again, yeah? So it's not for people that have had it and have got the natural immunity, it's only for the dipsticks that have been vaccinated, okay? Safety of current available COVID-19 vaccines. Now you can see how that's playing out, by the way, just in the division it's causing in families. I have a lot of people ringing me up that are distraught because either the child, the offspring's had it, or the mother's had it, the father, etc. So, and I just say to them, well, look, there's nothing else you can do. You've expressed your thoughts, you've expressed what you've found. The choice is theirs. Let them take it. If they want to take it, let them take it. You can't. You're not responsible, is the message I'm giving to parents whose of age offspring have decided to take it. Leave them to it. Let them have it. It says many of the COVID-19 vaccines are based on completely novel technology, mRNA vaccines, which has never previously been approved for use in humans. Therefore, long-term safety cannot be inferred. Since the COVID-19 vaccine rollout began in December 2020, there already have been thousands of reports of serious adverse events and deaths to the VAERS database in the US, the Vigilance database in Europe, and the MHRA in the UK. Well, you're not including Israel there. They've vaccinated 53% of the population. UK claims to have vaccinated 26.4% of its population. I don't believe that for a minute, okay? I don't believe there's 26% of this great nation is retarded. But I do know that there's a big chunk of them on medical drugs, so the drug addicts are not thinking properly, they walk around like they're in space cadets. So I do expect that there has been a big amount of people that have gone with this because they're already addicted to medical drugs. You know, they're out the game, they're not dealing in reality. But 26%, I'm not buying it. I'm really not buying it at all. It says, concerns that COVID-19 vaccines may cause antibody-dependent immune enhancement, ADE, have not been addressed in the clinical trials on humans or animals. ADE causes an exaggerated immune response on exposure to coronaviruses following vaccination. Well, coronavirus, let's not get into that. Leading to more severe illness. No, people are popping off like flies. People know people that are dying. And still, the idiots are going for it. Why? Well, they want to join the local club. They're not thinking about their own health. They're thinking about, I want to go on holiday. I want to play out. You see, the thing is, if it gets to that point, anybody, if these supermarkets are open, them are going to be the targets for the population. You must hit it and remove the ability for these idiots that are taking the vaccine to no at you. You with me? You've got to start thinking like men, males. Stop listening to your missus, stop listening to your mother, and stop listening to your daughters. Okay? They're debauched. They're fruitcakes, most of them today. They love Lady Gaga. They love X Factor. Everything that's crap and debauched. They love homosexuality. They love abortion. This is females. Whether you like it or not, this is the females today because there's no male there to keep them in check. That's what happens. That's why we're put together. We need each other. Women are just again, I'm looking at these videos where people are confronting the police. 99% of the time, it's a female idiot thinking she's got all the power in the world. These females are tapped. You know what I'm saying? But as a male, how do you confront a female being an arsehole? When they touch you, when they grab you, what do you do? If it were a male, you can quite reasonably stick your fingers in their eyes and put them on the floor and cut their ear off until they comply. But you do that to a female, you don't come off right good yet because people haven't catched up to why they're using females in these positions. It's, again, to stop that happening. These are things we're going to have to start to compute in our minds, and how are we going to move for it? Because, at the end of the day, these females think they're men. So there's going to come a point at some point where males are going to have to think, well, okay, if you're going to act like a male, I'll treat you like a male. That's in the future. But what I'm saying is, they're playing that game against you. just to make it even more difficult for you to be able to act within your lawful rights to protect yourself by using psychotic females. It's, I'm not being anti-female. I know that's what a lot of people are thinking. I'm stating facts. And the facts of the matter is they're using females for that very mechanic. Okay. It says it is unethical and unlawful to bring in any measure. See, they're using unlawful. So these liberty lawyers, in my eyes, are questionable. They're questionable in relation to this format that they're trying to do. This, in my opinion, so far, is a diversion. It's going to take you down a dead end, like the Venetian, like that John Smith common law courts things. I mean, I know a lot of you are falling for it. Fine. And you're coming to me for advice. You don't like the advice I'm giving you. Fine. But when it turns out that I'm right, don't come crying to me. It's the same with the vaccines. They're coming to me, I like the vaccine, and I laugh at them. I laugh in their face. Because no more words are necessary. I spoke all the words to them before that I thought they needed to hear. So if you're coming at me now crying your eyeballs out because you vaccinated your kid, you've been vaccinated, I'm going to laugh at you, and I'm going to laugh out loud, because there are no more words that can be used in that situation. You didn't listen, you've gone and done it, deal with it. You're responsible. If you're vaccinating your kids, you're responsible. If you're taking the vaccine, you're responsible. You're responsible. You're responsible. And I'm going to laugh at you. And I'm going to laugh out so loud, people will look around and go, why is he laughing at? I'm going to laugh at you because you've been an idiot. Fine. And then you're a good example for them that haven't, to see, don't be a fool like these stupid idiots, I know, I'm sorry I'm getting excited, but it's just getting so ridiculous now. It's quite ridiculous. It is unethical and unlawful to bring in any measure that puts pressure on an individual to submit themselves to a medical intervention, which is still experimental and for which the long-term safety profile is unknown. Now, back in the day, they had to create First World War in order to vaccinate the majority of males, to get rid of them. After the First World War, you were left with women, grandmas, children, and then all the damaged lads that did survive the First World War because they didn't take the vaccine. And then Churchill created the underworld out of those damaged men. That's what happened. Now they've got you so brain dead, they don't need to kick you off to a war to get you vaccinated. I mean, they've got all the strong lads in there vaccinated up to death. You can't tell me there's no excuse. You're in military and you're getting vaccinated. You're a dumbass. You're a dick. I went in military, they were giving us that course, I fucked off. I said, fuck off. I joined to be a soldier, not a guinea pig. Fuck your vaccine, fuck your soldiering. You know what I'm saying? That were on me, that were my choice, because I'm not stupid. I'm a man, I'm a male. I'm a man, I'm a fucking male. I'm not a human, I'm not a person, and I'm not a dim fuck. People are unable and willing to have COVID-19 tests or vaccines will not be able to prove their health status, thus having their basic freedoms de facto restricted. Vaccine immunity passports risk enshrining such discrimination in law and undermining administration law. See, again, these liberty lawyers, they're full of shit. You really need to double check who you're dealing with here, you chaps. And undermine the right to health of individuals and the population as a whole. Vaccine passports would be amenable to both corruption and implicit bias. They may exacerbate the harm inflicted by COVID-19 on already vulnerable people who may be more hesitant to seek medical care due to discriminatory access. Any large-scale deployment of vaccine passports could disproportionately segment society and breach rights to equality and non-discrimination. What do you mean could? Stop using the word could, okay? This is, again, these liberty lawyers, you really want to double check who you're dealing with, folks. They sound to me like a bunch of wankers, It says, labelling people based on their COVID-19 immunity or vaccine status may fuel a societal stratification along lines of access to medical care, housing, education, public transport, cultural events, hospitals, travel, etc. You're damn right, it's not could. You can see that that's exactly what their intention is. It says legal implications of vaccine immunity. It says vaccine immunity passports will face legal challenges. No, you want to be doing lawful challenges. Again, these legal liberty lawyers are full of shit, people. This is a dead end path. that you're going on here. And this is the first time I'm reading it as I go with you on this video. So that's how I'm seeing it as I read this. It says international health regulations, IHR 25, prohibit health measures that are discriminatory and impede international travel. However, the UK does not have laws to expressly address discrimination experienced by those who are immune privileged. Yes, it fucking does. It's called England. It's called the common law. It's called case law. Alright? That's what it is. And you better fucking believe it that there are the laws in place. Alright? Measures. See, they're using the term measures because you're in administration law. However, the UK, we've done that. The HRA 2005 and other international laws require states to respect human rights and avoid discrimination. Well, I'm not a human, so I don't give a fuck about your humanity and your rights. I'm a man, and I have freedoms under God, as derived from the word of God, because I am in the image of God, as you all are. You see, these dickheads, these Noahides, are going against God. God made man in his image, male, female. That's the way it is in Genesis, okay, 27. Go and have a look at it. You know, somebody sent me an email saying, I think you're wrong about male, female, it's to do with blah, 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 animals. I said, okay, where's the source document for that? Didn't come. You know, you really need to check yourselves, guys. If you're going to start throwing stuff around like this, you better make sure you have the source. Or, you're pushing shit. You believe in shit. You're incorrect. Alright? The Bible speaks male, female. He created man in his image, and then designated male, female. It says, under IHR, states must comply with their obligations to report additional measures, to base measures on scientific principles and evidence, and use the least restrictive measures available. The Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe passed resolution number 2361 of 2021 on 27th January 2021, in which it stated that paragraph 731 ensure that citizens are informed that the vaccination is not mandatory and that no one is politically, socially or otherwise pressured to get themselves vaccinated if they do not wish to do so themselves. Paragraph 732 ensures that no one is discriminated against for not having been vaccinated due to possible health risks or not wanting to be vaccinated, okay? It's clear as a bell. The Universal Declaration of Bioethics and Human Rights protects an individual's bodily autonomy, the right to informed consent and the right to refuse medical interventions without penalty or restriction. It states that any preventative, diagnostic and therapeutic medical intervention must only be carried out with the prior free and informed consent of the person. See, person. Liberty lawyers, you're full of shit. Alright? This is a dead end game here. So if you're jumping on this one, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. Tory MP Steve Barker recently raised the issue of implicit coercion in Parliament, saying, will you agree with me it's not enough for the government merely to refrain from coercing people? The government also got to pay attention to implicit coercion. That is, if the government turns a blind eye to allowing business like airlines and restaurants to refuse to let people in unless they've been vaccinated, the government's got to decide whether it's willing to allow people to discriminate on that basis. I mean, that's a bit stupid as well. It's the government that are demanding this. It is the government that's demanding this. You know, stop. See, they're playing with words. You know, it makes you think that they're on your side and they're actually giving something for you, but they're not. It's just talking shop. Now, I'm going to go through all that global context, but I'll just put the end two paragraphs, which is proposed medical freedom bill to safeguard UK citizens, save our rights, supported by the UK Medical Freedom Alliance and Lawyers for Liberty, are currently campaigning through lobbying MPs and government for medical freedom bill to be brought into law, which actively protects and preserves individual medical freedom and bodily autonomy, and to ensure that no individual can be discriminated against, penalised or have restrictions imposed on them based on their vaccine status. We urge you to support this important addition to individual legal protection for UK citizens. Bullshit! Bullshit with a capital bollocks. You're in administration law. We already have freedoms. We already have everything that they want in to put into this shitty mix we already have as man, as derived from the word of God. Alright, we have it. So you need to learn how to be a man or suffer the consequences. The conclusion they come up with is, in the context of the much hailed success of the COVID-19 vaccine rollout and the desperate public desire for a return to normal life, or just return to normal life. Don't be desperate. Just do it. And freedom. We urge you to allow a return to individual responsibility for our own health. We urge you. The government works for you. Command it. The police are public servants. Command them. Look, nobody obeys commands or orders if they're not being paid. You get paid to obey a command. You get paid to obey an order. The only time that is contrary is if you breach law. Not administration law, the common law. You breach that, then you've lost your freedoms. After a difficult and damaging year of unprecedented and draconian restrictions, we have removed so many of our rights and freedoms in the name of COVID-19. They haven't removed any of your freedoms. They've removed rights, benefits and privileges because you're all one person. They cannot remove freedoms. The freedoms are enshrined in the Constitution. The freedoms above that are enshrined in the Ten Commandments. Them are the only rules to live and exist as a man in the image of God, as you were created, to obey the Ten Commandments. Not to worship God, not to worship Jesus, not to worship Allah, not to worship Buddha. Follow is the term that Jesus used. Follow me, my lead, what I'm doing. The man was an expert in law. He was brilliant. Yeah? But you don't see it like that. You've jumped into the Disneyland bullshit, garbage and pish of it all. Alright? You need necromancers. What's a necromancer? They raise the dead. They raise the dead. You want to consider why in the Disneyland version is there a tomb of death and then a resurrection? It's a play. This whole system, this Babylonian system, is a play on the man Jesus. Because they've resurrected him in their own ideology and created the Disneyland church around that. Take that on board. Start to think about in these terms, you know? Why would you have to have this tomb resurrection? If you want to go in its spiritual explanation, then what it's doing is mimicking the Egyptian idea of you die, you go into the dark place for 3 days, and then your heart's weighed, and then, and only then, are you judged, and you will either move into the heavens or you'll remain earthbound. You are not going to go to heaven if you've worshipped this Disneyland, because what you're doing is giving essence and life to necromancy. Because the risen Jesus that the church uses is necromancy. Jesus represented life. Babylon represents the dead. Osiris represents the dead. They have resurrected what was a living teaching and turned it into a death cult. Okay, so I want you to consider that. Because if you've got a brain, you might just understand something there from which you might just be able to see how I'm trying to slowly move a real and more appropriate understanding of the doctrines that have built our nations, okay? You don't have to. I don't care. I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter. Do as you please. It says, after a difficult and damaging year of unprecedented draconian restrictions, we have removed so many of our rights and freedoms, not freedoms, just rights, and privileges and benefits, in the name of COVID-19. It is disproportionate and unnecessary to go down the route of further restrictions and loss of freedoms that a vaccine immunity passport would entail. It would permanently increase state power over our lives and set a dangerous precedent which would effectively require the public to accept all vaccines and boosters that the government or private businesses, well, the government is a private business. These liberty lawyers are full of shit. The Crown agents shitting your efforts up. You really need to get that. That's the main thing you need to understand on this system. So UK Medical Freedom Alliance, get rid of the term UK and get rid of these liberty lawyers because they're full of shit. Alright, they're either full of shit or they're thick. What It will permanently increase state power. Yeah. I'll do that bit again. It says it would permanently increase state power over our lives and set a dangerous precedent which would effectively require the public to accept all vaccines, boosters that the government and private business wish to add to the passport requirements in the future to be able to enjoy basic human. They use freedoms again, but it's not. It's rights, privileges and benefits that's coming under this system that they're operating in. And freedoms of movement by association. Vaccine passports have no place in democratic and free society. Well, they have all the place in a democratic society. Just study the Greek. Study Plato. You know, if you want to understand what a democracy is. We're not a democracy. England is a constitutional monarchy. America is a constitutional republic. And it built its republic off the works of Sir Edward Coke. Now, so Edward Coke was in touring with the Whigs. I've rallied against the Whigs a lot. But, as I've said before, you've got to understand left and right as two sides of the same coin being flipped by the same banker. Each side has 11 protocols, let's say, which make up the 22 protocols every nation needs for it to succeed. So the Crown has divided the page of protocols and given half to each. That gives them the power because each are dealing with essential protocols. You know, you really have to start looking at it in these ways. That's democracy. So democracy is a dividing of the actual page of protocols and giving it to two dipstick sides. That's democracy. It has one end, tyranny. You're in it now. You're in it now, and some of you are sucking the shit out of its ass. Because you're cowards. Because you're retarded. Okay. It's vaccine passports have no place in democratic and free society and would be a profoundly illiberal, undemocratic and un-British policy. We urge you not to pursue this dangerous path. Just let me break that down for you. Vaccine passports would have no place in a democratic. These liberty lawyers are assholes. Pulling in Admiralty. The only terms here they're using that's good is free society. That's correct. And would be profoundly illiberal. Liberal, that's liberty, admiralty. Undemocratic, fuck democracy. And un-British. British is imperial. It's imperial, it's an empire. So, okay, we've gone through that. I said to you to actually hopefully promote this work that they're doing. Unfortunately, I've pulled it to pieces because it needs pulling to pieces because this is 100% garbage. Alright, it's garbage. And at the moment, I'm giving UK Medical Freedom Alliance the benefit of the doubt because they're obviously listening to these wankers calling themselves liberty lawyers or lawyers for liberty. It doesn't really matter which way they use it. They're bastards, are Crown agents, screwing up yet another move by good-intentioned people. And with that, my DFP friends and enemies, if you're out there, good, I don't care. Till the next time.